My name's Steve Stokan. I am a member of the London Police Service. I have 28 years in, and I'm a constable for life. I have worked as a detective multiple times, and I like the street. It's the place where all cops go. I was a detective on a project, doing a human trafficking project, and during the human trafficking project, we worked long hours. There was multiple officers doing investigations. It was very complex, a lot of search warrants, and we were working probably 10 to 12-hour days every day of the week. As time went on, the human trafficking project wrapped up. We executed multiple search warrants all over Canada, and we went into the evidence collection phase. During the evidence collection phase, I saw a picture of a girl, and she was just so sad while she was having sex. And that struck me. The sadness in her face got me. And I just started crying randomly in the shower. I started crying at home. I started crying at in places where if I couldn't keep it together, I would just escape. I was very good at work. I mostly kept it together. Every once in a while I would have a reaction, but when I was at home, it was terrible. It was not good. I completely isolated from all my family. And what happened was some of my old injuries that occurred over my career started coming back, and I started having graphic nightmares. I'd had some old nightmares that I had from a long time ago, involving some calls that I've been on. And then I got some new nightmares that had occurred. And as a result, I was struggling, and I had requested for a change of duties and requested to go back onto the street. I immersed myself as a training officer, and I started training a new recruit just so I can do a little bit more. I always liked training. I always wanted to instill in them all the values that I had and all the information that I could so that they could be good cops. But during that, I was involved in a tragic call, a murder-suicide, and seeing the children crying was just impactful on me. It bothered me. I quickly began to spiral, and then what happened was I started to notice that my I got pins and needles in my feet, then into my legs, and eventually over a month or two, it ended up in my testicles. I thought, oh my God, do I have cancer? I went to my doctor and I started telling them I'm not sleeping, I'm having nightmares. They checked, I didn't have cancer. They didn't know what was wrong, so they sent me off to a neurologist. It took a couple months because of waiting lists and stuff. By the time I'd seen the neurologist, the pins and needles were everywhere through my body. I was very, very dizzy. My memory was shot. I was still crying and very emotional. I had ringing in my ears constantly, and I was very dizzy all the time. I went to the neurologist, and the neurologist did every test that was available, and they were at their wits' end. They did not know what was wrong with me. They felt it was something acute and that I needed to go to a specialty clinic in Toronto. Just prior to going to the clinic, a resident who had just finished doing rounds at Parkwood Hospital approached me and said, Steve, I'm taking your study here, and every time you talk, you're always talking about some of the things that happened at work. You know, I did some rounds at the OSI clinic with war veterans, and have you ever heard of PTSD? I said, yeah, I've heard about PTSD. And he goes, well, is it possible that you have PTSD and including somatic symptoms of PTSD? And I said, I don't have PTSD, come on. PTSD is for cowards, it's for weak people. I love my job. As soon as I got this taken care of, doc, whatever it is that's got me going and I'm better, I'm right back into the saddle, put me in, coach. And I was like, I didn't believe it. However, he planted the suggestion in me. I went home, and like every other cop will do, they'll investigate everything about it. And I read up on the DSM-5, and I had virtually every symptom. That was very disturbing to me. I reached out right away to somebody that I knew that had PTSD, and he put me in contact with a psychologist. And that psychologist on the second visit diagnosed me with PTSD, complex PTSD. So I get the diagnosis of PTSD, I'm not doing very well, I don't tell work, and I hide it. I just hide it from work and I keep working until I couldn't. One day I was up in the locker room, I'm gonna say around September of 2016, and I just dizzy, I passed out and fell down. I don't know what happened, and I was putting my gun belt on, my rookie was signing out his cruiser. I got up, I'm like, oh my God, I am so messed up. I can't train my rookie. I went and told the staff sergeant that something's wrong. and I told her I had PTSD. Right away, she was excellent. She told me to go home and just relax, and we got your back and we'll look after you. And so I went home, slept for the night, came back in at work, and I was not in a good mindset. I knew I was crashing. I was crying a lot. I couldn't hold it anymore. So I told her I was going to take 3 weeks off. So I took 3 weeks vacation because I didn't even know how to call in sick. I took 3 weeks vacation and took that time off. And I thought, I'm good to go. 3 weeks, I'm fine. You know, this stuff will just come off me. I'm excellent. So I take the time off, and when I come back, it's not good. I walked out in maybe November of 2016, and I was given a sheet of paper with a few doctors' names on it, and that was the only support that I got. So I walked out and I languished and sat at home not knowing what to do. I was in my own head. It was not very healthy. I was seeing a psychologist, but WSIB had not picked me up, so the psychologist didn't stop seeing me until WSIB picked me up. It took 4.5 months. And once WSIB picked me up, we started doing some therapy. Unfortunately, that 4.5 months, a lot of things happened. And in my mind, I felt I was weak. I started putting together points in my life with my PTSD where I thought and I perceived that I was harming my children and I was harming my family. I remember 23 years ago, somebody tried to take my life and with a knife, and I had 23 years ago I used to have very graphic nightmares of this person coming through my window and stabbing my kids to death. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would walk up and try to stop him from coming in the window while I was dreaming. My wife was very worried. I had 3 small boys, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and how do you explain to a 4-year-old what's going on? So that really, really ate me up. So as time went on, it passed, and we moved on. So now, fast forward back to now, or back to 2016, I'm realizing that I've had PTSD for 23 years of my career. It is on and off multiple times. A lot of the calls have impacted me, and my faith in humanity was, I did not think that humans were a good species on this earth. I thought I was a terrible father. I perceived that I harmed my children, and the longer that I was alive, I'd be hurting them. This entire time, I was not truthful or honest with my psychologist. I'm a cop. I'm a real tough guy. I fix problems. I don't have problems. And as a result, I started thinking about suicide. And while I'm going through therapy and actually exploring things and talking, I don't think my psychologist had any idea I was suicidal. At some point in time, I had planned to commit suicide on duty. And I was formulating a plan. I wrote 6 suicide letters, 1 to my wife, 1 to each of my kids, and 1 to each of my parents, and said, I'm so sorry they're going to put you through this, but once you understand what happened here, you'll see why I had to do this. And then, out of the blue, somebody put me onto this a program. 3 days later, I was on the program, and on day 3 of the cohort, I knew I was going to beat my PTSD. The people at that program were excellent. Everybody that was on the program had PTSD and recovered from it, and it gave me a new lease on life. Once I was done the program, I was connected with a group of people that are just like-minded like me. They understand what I'm going through. I don't have to explain to them, and they're not judgmental. You know, in our profession, we're very, very judgmental. We will judge each other. We judge ourselves the worst. We're our worst own critics. As a result, once I got out of the program and I came back home, I told WSIB I wanted to go back to work. I was not ready. Made it back to 80% of my hours and had a relapse and went back off. So I go back off work. I'm now devastated that I'm back off work, and I'm starting to contemplate that maybe my policing profession is not healthy for me. Do I need more skills? Do I need to have a change? I don't know. So I start having honest conversations with myself about this. I start doing some very in-depth work. While I was seeing the psychologist, I wanted to avoid the trauma that made me cry and made me upset. Started opening that door, and we did some very deep trauma work. And I started to understand the depth of the PTSD and how it impacted me. I'm still doing that work right now. To me, it was cumulative. There were very specific incidences that impacted me in areas that I was basically underdefended in. 23 years ago, we were responding to a homicide in progress, and en route, my friend and my old roommate crashed his car into a tree, and I had to sit with him for several hours while he was trapped in the car, begging me to help him get out, and I couldn't help him. In the exact same time, while I was struggling with that, I had a motorist, and that motorist was in possession of crack cocaine. I pulled him out of the car, and he tried to cut my throat with a knife. I struggled, got him off me, arrested him, high five, everything's great. But about a year or two later, I started having graphic nightmares about it. And those nightmares lasted for years. So I'm certain I had PTSD from at least the knife incident, but likely from my friend's car accident, because I also had nightmares of me being trapped in myself all the time. And these were almost nightly. I was having issues with trusting anybody. I had so much armor up to protect myself from emotions and be neutral and not feeling anything that I wouldn't let anybody in. I would have problems hugging my kids. It would feel scary to me. It would be dangerous. When I went into restaurants, I could not sit anywhere except for my back of the door. I always knew where all the escape routes were. I always knew where any threats might possibly be. I would check my doors if they were locked multiple times a night. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes not knowing where I was, like after a dream or whatever it was, and I'd have to go and do it all over again. I was just in a constant restless state. I could not shut my mind off. And nothing could make me happy. All the joy juice was just sucked out of me. I also, through therapy, started unraveling a lot of how the PTSD had impacted me, and I started to understand that my job was not healthy for me. So some of the supports I had was I reached out to somebody who had PTSD, and they were very open and frank with me. Once they know that you have PTSD, having PTSD, most people are in the closet about it. People perceive that it's a career killer, and so they will not come out. But if they know that you have PTSD, they will come out and they will fully tell you everything. I also sought out people that were kind and good people. My staff sergeant was excellent how she dealt with me. She really knew what to do. She knew what to say. She took all the pressure off of things. I also had reached out to my union. My union has a lot of caring individuals on it, and I reached out to them. I then started seeking programs, and there's lots of programs out there. I started seeking and understanding mindfulness. I started trying to learn skills that will help mitigate my PTSD. Meditation is excellent. It helps calm the mind, and I belong to peer support groups for people with PTSD. So I belong to a support group. Myself and two other members created it. We have currently had over 220 first responders go through it. We have 47 active members right now, and basically is a place that's non-judgmental and safe away from our workplaces so that we can talk about the struggles that we're going through. You'll find that a first responder, once they go to group, you'll find that you're a normal person going through a normal situation just due to the things that occur to us in our workplace. You'll also find that everybody's journey to PTSD is different. How we get PTSD and how these incidences that we're involved in impact us is different. And you cannot judge one, oh, I'm not worthy of PTSD. I didn't do anything like that person did it. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. The journey to PTSD is different, but we all suffer from it basically the same. So group provides a place where you can talk about it, you can understand it, learn from each other, and mutually support each other in a hard time. If I could do it all over again, I would get help sooner. In fairness, being stubborn, and I got this, it would probably all played out the same as it had occurred. However, I'll tell people, if you're struggling and if you're having problems, you don't like yourself, you're yelling at your family, you're yelling at your kids, the things that gave you joy don't give you joy anymore, go seek help. Maybe it's PTSD, maybe it's just burnout, but go talk to somebody to help you. Service gaps. There are a lot. Unfortunately, the system is very flawed. Once you walk out the door at work, you basically are given a piece of paper and you're on your own with no education, no understanding on how to navigate the system. And if you isolate yourself, nobody's going to reach out to you. So you have to tell people that you're struggling, that you need help, and invite them back in. You have to check your ego at the door. Yes, we are strong people. And I've found that some of the strongest people and some of the most caring people are the ones that get PTSD. And they go down the hardest when they go down. So check your ego at the door, go get help, and start telling people. Once you start telling people that you're struggling, they will naturally want to help you. If your buddy told you he was hurting and he just doesn't know what to do, you would go out of your way to go help that person and do everything that you had to do to help them. Why won't you do that for yourself? How am I doing now? I'm actually doing excellent. Several things have happened. And it's going to be strange to hear this, but I'm very grateful that I went on this PTSD journey. I was becoming a person that I didn't like. The job had been changing me from the things that we saw. It was impacting me and making me become a person that I didn't like. And then once I broke from PTSD, and it had to bring me right to my knees or I would not have sought help. Once I broke from PTSD, almost killed myself over it, and went on this journey. Once I realized what the journey was about, I embraced it. I went through the journey and all the difficult stuff, and on the other side is beauty. I'm very grateful that this had happened to me. It gave me the great reset. It allowed me to rebuild myself up back to the person that I wanted to be. I'm now my true authentic self. I'm doing things that I like enjoying, and any damage that I've perceived or that I have done in the past, I can repair and move on. It is never too late to recover.